Yeah.
So, uh, so we were just talking about your date night and date night, upcoming date night at the gym, and I
At the
was like,
gym.
that is a quality gift to each other, man.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's like you start realizing that you can either sit at your desk all day and just sort of waste away, or you can go be active. And this is our way of being active.
I love it. I love it. That's great. I'll prefer
Welcome
to
to
waste
meditation,
away.
right?
I'll waste away at a nice restaurant with a nice Chianti.
Hey, well, no, we're doing that too. Hey, she took me out to a one of those Brazilian steakhouses for Father's Day, and
Oh,
we
so good.
feasted like it was scandalous. Just how much food we ate, but Brazilian steakhouse. Like you just keep the green card up, and you're
That's
like,
right.
bring it on. It's like someone come by. It's like, would you like some of this house picanha steak? And I'm like, yes, I would. Like, how much? Just keep coming. Just more.
I
Would you
like
like
that.
lamb? Yes, I would like lamb.
Bring it up. I think. Well, what is it they call it? Like a churrascaria, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, churrascaria.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't want to offend anyone that's watching.
Oh,
Our
that's
large
what it is.
group of people from Brazil that are always watching us.
Sorry to our Brazilian friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. uh, so we are trying something new today. So
Yep.
usually we just come on here and rant, for an hour.
Just say our stuff.
Yep. Hey, you changed something on your mic over there, I think. Did you?
Is it wrong? Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry about that.
you had a buzz or something going on.
Not good.
But yeah, so we usually just get on here and rant and see where the wind blows us. But I was like, hey, what do you think if we just send each other, 5 talking points each and see if there's any overlap and just kind of knock them out. And we actually overlapped on 3, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two that you had listed that I did not have, I'd also been kind of reading up on a little bit. So, I think it sounds pretty good. Let's should we do the ones that we agreed on first and then see how much time we have left?
Yeah. So let's just tell people kind of what we got here. So we're going to talk if we can hit all these in time, before your date night. So we got the Iran-Israel confrontation.
Yeah.
We got AI, programming software ramifications, et cetera. We've got the Maha and the Democrats trying to stop pharmaceutical ads and how that's going. So those are the 3 that we agreed on. And then we've got these other 4 that are kind of between us. So you suggested the collapse of Blue Sky, which I had not heard it was collapsing, but and then you had some Father's Day thoughts. We'll definitely do that to close. And then I had the political assassinations, what I'm referring to them as, in Minnesota, and also the National Guard being called out in California. So
yeah.
So if we can, we'll hit all that, and we'll just so let's just start with Iran, man. What do you think?
Well, so I was talking to Dad about this a little bit, and just letting him know, like I have not been able to find a whole bunch of what I consider to be super.
Well, and for context, for those people that don't know and aren't familiar, our dad is from Iran, so he was born in Tehran and grew up there. Left when he was 18, which was in '67. So the Shah was overthrown in '79. That's the Iranian Revolution, and so he was 12 years before the revolution is when he left. And actually, I was 1 or 2 years old when Dad finally finished getting his master's degree and everything, and where they were thinking about, okay, I'm going to get a job and go to work, and what do you think about possibly moving back to Tehran? That was an option for them, for Mom and Dad at the time, and so we went over there when I was 2, and Mom decided when she realized that one of the hotels they stayed at also had a parking spot for camels, she was like, I think I'd rather go back to Texas.
So the way Dad tells the story is that he got a couple of interviews, but he just didn't feel like he felt like he had changed so much from the time that he had spent here in the States. That it was like, I don't want to stay. It doesn't feel right. So anyway,
Okay, so
But
on you go.
well, anyway, so he's probably a little bit more plugged into what's going on over there. One of the things that I talked to him about was that I just didn't know, who I should trust about what's going on. So I follow the Iranian military on Twitter. And
Yeah, you
they're
sent me
po-
their X account. I was like, wow, this is
they're
some
posting
pretty
all this
crazy
stuff
stuff.
of like, these missiles, and they're like, we have a beautiful surprise planned for tomorrow. It's like, missile,
And all
and
these missiles firing off in unison, and I was like, Jesus.
yeah. Well, and the other thing that was kind of wild about it was they had posted some pictures that are advertisements. They would post these advertisements like a billboard, and it would a billboard in Farsi, Arabic, and Hebrew, and it showed the tip of one of their hypersonic missiles, which I didn't know until this had happened. I didn't realize they had hypersonic missiles. I thought the only people that had hypersonic missiles were us and Russia. Um, but no, they do.
They at least had the AI versions of them. So
Well, so they've got the hypersonic missiles and the tips of them on there, and the caption, which was in those three languages, was 400 seconds to Tel Aviv, and that was in 2023. So, and I've actually seen some footage now of those hypersonic missile impacts. The reason they use those is that they're too fast to be shot down by like the anti-missile defense stuff. So you've got basically three types of missiles. You've got cruise missiles, which are kind of like an airplane almost. Like they fly pretty low, they're maneuverable, and they go to the target and land precision.
that's like the one that they fired in Superman 1, right?
Yeah, and it's like
It
it's
takes
flying
right,
along.
right,
It's got all these
right.
stages. They can't intercept it because of how low it is. Um, and then you've got ballistic missiles, which they have this arc pattern. They go up and then down, and so you got to aim them. And then the hypersonic missiles are a kind of ballistic missile where the re-entry, they go high up enough that they're up in orbit, basically. And when they come back down, they have a secondary set of rockets that fire, and they get them up to like Mach 12, Mach 13
On its way down.
on its way down.
From space.
Right. So by the time it's coming down so fast that it's almost impossible to intercept it. And some of the video that I've seen of these, and it looks like a meteor strike. Like you see these rockets, and then suddenly, whoosh, just comes right out of the sky. So anyway, Iran has those, and they have been firing them, and which is pretty wild to think about that is currently being used. So it looks like right now it's all conventional weapons and all missiles. Like we don't see anything chemical being used, biological. No one's using like dirty bombs. So it seems like, right, at least from what I can tell right now, they could just stop. Like there are no troops on the ground. There's no invasion force. Either
Who could
side.
stop?
What?
Who could stop?
Either side could be like, we
I see.
made our point. That'll show you, and you could kind of walk away, which you pretty much can't as soon as you put boots on the ground, or if you use like a WMD. So
what's your over under that they're going to walk away from this?
I kind of think they will.
Yeah, I would say very unlikely, but keep going.
You think so?
I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay. Well, it's just that at this point, like it's all fun and games because you're just firing these tech. You have basically a tech battle with each other. No soldiers are being put in harm's way. You're not using like military aircraft. They're very expensive. I mean, the rockets are disposable by their nature. Like the missiles are designed to be blown up. So
yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
it's not like, oh, we blew up an aircraft carrier or something like that. Like it's, so I feel like at this point there's still a chance to sort of walk away, save face, and like, do we really want to start having the soldiers get killed. And I think
So you're
maybe
saying
not
there's
yet.
a chance?
Maybe not yet. What are you thinking?
Let me just separate my thoughts into two categories. So there's the category. Hey, Rue. There's the category of how the operation is going, and then there's the category of what's behind this and motivations and forecasting and whatnot. Right. Okay. So I agree with your assessment of how it's being prosecuted. I mean, Israel has just been, again, masterful. And I mean, this just showcases how far ahead Israel is in terms of not just military prowess, but intelligence. They apparently in their first strike, they were able to decapitate like the head of the Iranian guard, I mean, it just goes down this whole list of like the person in charge of the nuclear program. I mean, they knew where all these people were, and they were all eliminated, basically leaving Iran with no real tactical response. Like, yes, they're able to fire a bunch of missiles, and they've killed, I think, I think they've
A couple hundred civilians on each side.
a couple hundred civilians, yeah. And they'll continue to do that. But in terms of like an actual strategic response, I don't think they have many options at the moment, which is why they're reaching out to Qatar and the Saudis and all that. Anybody else who will pick up the phone saying, "Hey, could you work with the U.S. and work your contacts to help?" And they're basically saying, "Hey, look, we're willing to talk now. Let's get a ceasefire and let's get to the table and let's negotiate something. And we're willing to negotiate, basically."
Yeah.
Israel at this point, the report I heard earlier today is that they now are at least asserting that they have complete command, freedom of movement in the skies, meaning they control Iran's airspace. If you can believe that, like they control their airspace, like they don't have, the Iranians are not.
If that's true, that is an enormous advantage.
A huge advantage. I mean, so Iran's not able to get any planes up in the air to fight or dogfight the Israeli fighter jets that are going in there. I mean, they're basically running patrols, and they have the place kind of dominated at the moment. So let's take that on face value. If that's true, then Israel has very little incentive, I think, to stop. In fact, I mean, while you got your enemy on the ground, I mean, finish them off. Is it? And again, this is just from a tactical. Not evaluating which side is right or wrong, but just like, hey, look, I mean, in a fight, if you get your guy on the ground, like just finish him off. Like you do not want them getting back up.
But so here's the part that I mean, I don't disagree with your.
I'm not making that call.
Yeah.
I'm saying the incentive structure is not there for Israel to back up.
What is, when you say finish them off, what does that mean in this context? You
so there's
you don't have the military.
There's two potentially advantageous objectives here. One would be the elimination of Iran's nuclear program, which is what Israel claims that they want. And so you could make the argument that they put a really good dent in it. They're saying that there's still a underground facility somewhere
but they don't have the means to do an underground strike like that.
Which is why they want our B-52s. Exactly.
We do. South Korea does. Russia does.
Yep.
They have,
and that's why they're asking us basically for and it's not like we can just throw
come join,
loan it to them. We have to have our people fly them, and even if we loaned it to them, it's that we're basically tacitly now involved.
Yeah.
So. And then the second objective, though, which is what BB started talking about, and it's interesting because now you hear people in America and the administration talking about, is regime change. Like, again, oh, let's, hey, these clowns, and pardon me, it's no disrespect to Islam or legitimate mullahs, but I mean, this regime, this Iranian Islamic Republic of Iran, is basically, they're responsible for so much of the unrest. I mean, I did a Google search earlier today, just kind of like, if you look at the amount of conflicts started in the Middle East prior to and during the Shah, I mean, literally, so we're now what, 79 to
It's about 45 years, 46 years.
Not even. 20, 45 years. Yeah. So, and if you go 45 years before the Shah, including the Shah, like during the Shah, there was like Iran was involved in no conflicts at all. And besides the Iran-Iraq war, but like there was no, that was a state war. There was no like terrorism, none of that stuff. And then even 35 years before the Shah, nothing. And then since during the revolution, the Islamic Republic, I mean, just thousands and thousands of just different attacks, this and that and the other. They're funding mayhem literally all over the Middle East.
Yeah.
So there's a very legitimate argument to say, I mean, obviously this is a troublemaking regime. It would be nice if they weren't in charge anymore, right? Now, does that mean that we want to put, American money or any, if we want to get involved or not? I would say absolutely not. However, there's a huge temptation, especially for Israel, to say, look, let's just keep prosecuting this. And if our intel was so good that we were able to just, decimate those high level targets like that, and now we have air superiority, I mean, let's ramp up whatever clandestine things that we can, and who knows what else they can pull off. So I think there's a lot of incentives there. So, I mean, you saw Trump left the G7 yesterday to come back and try to, but I think Trump's in a really tough spot because, he's been, and his entire base is very anti-war. I don't consider myself part of his base, but I'm definitely anti-war. That's one of the things that attracted me to more of, his language, at least, than what I was hearing from the Democratic side of the things.
If Harris was in charge, we would already be, there would already be missile strikes on Iran from the United States.
Potentially, and certainly if Nikki Haley had won the nomination, I mean, they wouldn't have
waited for Israel,
right? So
start on their own.
So now we can go through like what should or shouldn't happen, but to me, the more interesting conversation where I've been kind of like going down a rabbit hole a little bit the last few days is just, this seems to be very strange. The whole thing is very weird, right? Number one, like there has been a huge campaign, I think, different talking heads. You and I listen to a lot of news and get a lot of different perspectives. I mean, you would agree that there's just a huge drumbeat of, Iran's dangerous, they're whatever, like on and on and on and on, trying to get the public, I think, ready to embrace a incursion or whatever, right? Some kind of incident. Supposedly, and it's very confusing, did Trump and the administration actually know ahead of time that this was going to happen or not? And we haven't gotten a definitive answer. So like
most likely they did.
Well, I would assume they did, but here's what's crazy. If you saw that Israel had tweeted out that, they absolutely knew, right? And meanwhile, Trump was on Truth Social saying, we didn't know anything about this, but I mean, Trump's, full of crap most of the time. I don't believe much of what he says, but it's like, okay, well, he put this out there and then they come out and go, no, you guys, and he didn't respond back because, usually he'd be the first one to say, when Macron's, right, when Macron said, he's leaving the G7 to pursue a peace deal and he's wanting to keep his leverage, and he replies back almost immediately, the headline seeking Macron says, I'm searching for peace. That's not accurate. We're making war plans. And I think, like, to me, the Trump stance almost always is the most extreme version of, the worst outcome possible to bring the other people to the table. So it wouldn't surprise me that he would want to squash that immediately. But it's weird that he didn't respond back to the Israel tweet going, what are you talking about, man? You guys are liars. We didn't know anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, he just, there's silence on it. No, and the other thing that's really weird is that you hear all these, and again, this is from the administration now saying, Iran's so close to getting a nuclear weapon and blah, 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 blah. But yet Tulsi Gabbard in her confirmation just a couple months ago said, we have no evidence, none, that they're building. And in fact, when they canceled the program going back to 2013. So I just, this doesn't make any sense. I'm just very curious to hear how she walks that back. If they do end up, moving in, I was wrong, or I didn't have all the information, or sorry, that was a confirmation hearing, or who knows? I mean, I don't understand how you did it.
It may not be like, so it depends on, first of all, if the US gets involved at all. I mean, it may be that we just don't, that we don't need to. That our being involved is merely helping to fund the Israeli military like we've done forever. And so they're like, hey, nothing's changed. We're just doing our normal stuff. Nothing, you know. Um, so we may not be able to, may not have to intervene in that way. And if we do, it depends on what kind of intervention we're talking about. If it's something like um, Israel's doing all this and we're going to help with a couple strategic targets that we have the technology to be able to attack, and they don't, um, in exchange for, I don't know, whatever. But I think you don't have to put, like, again, it's like the boots on the ground part that is really tough. Yeah.
I mean, this is. I mean, right now, this is 30 minutes ago. So yeah, I don't think they're going to put boots on the ground. But,
right.
I mean,
Well, but that's so. This is the thing that I think, if I've been watching some of the MAGA stuff and trying to figure out like exactly where they don't have pacifism but isolationism, where that actually sits.
because there's a big divide right now. Like, I mean, you got a bunch of people. I mean, like Candace Owens, Dave Smith, Tucker. Oh, sure. I mean, a bunch of big name MAGA people basically like, I can't believe Trump is doing this. This is.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's that issue of, what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, which was you had, shock and awe followed by years and years and years of being deployed over there and at terrible situation, not really accomplishing anything. And it just seems like a, debacle, especially Afghanistan, the way it ended.
It doesn't seem like, I mean, it was a debacle.
Was a debacle.
Yeah.
Well, and you might have some people say, well, the outcomes that we wanted actually were there. We're never going to be able to build a Western style democracy in Afghanistan, and yeah, exactly.
Well, obviously, but all your papers and smart people said that's exactly what you were going to do.
Well, that's what we had to say in order to get the American people on board. But there's actually geopolitical reasons that made it necessary. And, this is the kind of stuff that the neocon folks say, right?
Should we just translate all of that into one 3-letter word? Oil.
Oil. But if it's truly limited, so if you remember, under the first Trump presidency, there was some strikes on Syria that, you had some people crow about a little bit, like, why are we getting involved? And it's like, well, the involvement was very limited. And it was, it called, if you remember, he called up Putin and was like, get your people out of there. We're striking this area. And they did. And the strike was done.
Trump's calling for the evacuation of Tehran right now.
Right. So it may be that you get like some strikes. We get to use some missiles. Everyone's excited to push the button.
I mean, hey, we spend $1 trillion on defense. What are we going to do with it? The money's burning a hole in their pocket.
Well, a lot of that stuff is just getting shipped to Ukraine, which now nobody kind of cares about anymore. You still have the people on the left. They're like, free Ukraine. But most people now, it's like, it's no longer the shiny toy. And so, we got to do something with all this stuff. Let's give it to Israel. Let them finish up the job, finish the job, whatever. I'm just still thinking about like what the outcome is. Like, how do you, so like, let's say you topple that regime. I don't know. So somehow you get the supreme leader flees the country and goes somewhere. I don't know where. Go to Switzerland or something. And there's a power vacuum. Then what? Like, how are you just going to shape the post Islamic Republic Iran if you're not there on the ground? Like, it's.
I think these are not.
It's just going to be chaos.
These are not questions for us. These are questions for the Iranian people. And it really. I mean, this is like the
yeah, but how this stuff happens. Like, you'll have everybody is excited to get rid of the bad dictator and he's gone, and then there's just this vacuum and everyone's out for themselves. You get a bunch of political backstabbing, and you wind up with the same situation, if not worse. Like, how many times does it happen where it's like, oh yeah, we overthrew them and now everything's fine? Like that's
Th-
almost
This
never happens.
this is my point. I mean, like to me, if I hear that they have decided on a course of regime change, I'm going to get really pissed because it's ridiculous. It's like, dude, like they're not even changing the playbook. I mean, we all lived through this run up to the war in Iraq, and they're using the exact same language. They haven't even used AI to freshen it up or anything. It's like literally a copy paste operation.
Copy the homework,
And
just change it a little to make
just
it
yeah,
efficient,
this one's really easy. Change all Q's to N's,
Yeah.
and boom, it's like it's crazy. So I just if they go that route, then it's literally like on one hand, you'd like to, like my inner voice is like, have you learned nothing? But on the other hand, it's like, well, no, actually, the first one worked for the people that were invested in pulling it off. Like I mean, we did destabilize the region. We did, have huge rebuilding contracts we did spend trillions of dollars that all went into American contractors' pockets. So that's a win. Now it's not a win for the region. It's not a win for the American people. It's not a win for the taxpayers. It's not a win for our diplomatic, what do you want to call it, influence. But it's a win for the people that wanted it to happen. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going to be pissed, but I'm going to not be surprised. It's going to be like, okay. My hope would be, that Trump is who he pretends to be, and heads that off or forestalls that in some way, and being like, no, we're not participating in that. Which, I don't know. That's just fingers crossed.
So here's kind of an interesting possibility. So especially with Iraq, if you remember, there was a very deep sense of America kind of going it alone. Like for Afghanistan, everybody wanted a piece of that because they're like, right. We're all New Yorkers now, kind of thing.
Well, it wasn't just that, but it was a NATO because it was an attack on a NATO nation. And
right. But Iraq is a preemptive war. There was a lot of opposition, France especially, if you remember.
That's right. No thanks. That's why we switched to freedom fries.
Freedom fries, yeah.
That's right.
Hey, it's our oldest ally. We should have listened. Anyway,
we outlawed entrepreneurs because they're French too.
Well, so what would happen if, in this case,
it was the coalition of the willing, if you remember, right?
Yeah,
coalition of the willing, yeah.
So what if this case, it's kind of like, so this is, I heard something like this coming out of some Israel spokesperson that said something like, well, maybe it was Netanyahu, the prime minister. He said something like, trust me, everybody in the West wants this to happen. They just can't do it themselves. And so, but they're all happy that we're doing it. And so we're going to do this, like we're already the bad guys. Oh no, everyone is denouncing us. It's like, okay, you just keep denouncing us. That's cool. We'll do it. And then afterwards, the people that kind of assist along the way can have a part of the rebuild. And so like the United States can be like, hey, all we did was we sold them some bombs. Like we're not doing anything. Like,
we sell everybody bombs.
We sell everybody bombs. We sold Iranians bombs. We sold everybody. Right. So we sold some bombs. They used them and they won. And gosh, why wouldn't we be involved in the rebuild? But we're not. We're not the ones in charge of regime change. That's them. And maybe there's a way to. I mean, the cynical one would be like we launder our regime change through a friendly local government.
How's that cynical? That sounds very accurate to me.
Or maybe it is really the other way. Or it's like, hey, you thread this line. We're not going to stop Israel from doing this. In fact, maybe we're secretly kind of happy about it.
Okay, but also Netanyahu is a huge liar. I mean, just sorry, he is. It's like, dude, he's been saying. I mean, you can go back 20 years. That Iran is days away from having a nuclear weapon. Like,
I saw some stuff like that in the 90s. I kind of feel like the Iranian nuclear weapon program is kind of like fusion power. It's like it's almost here.
Right. Yeah, like, we almost have it figured out.
We're one breakthrough away.
Well, it's like you keep using this word. You keep using this word imminent. I don't think this word means what you think it means.
Well, and it might be, this might be one of those things that once all this is over and we get to see some of the records that maybe they have been this whole time very close, but then like there's all these setbacks. There's setbacks involving, the green movement that happened. There were setbacks involving the atomic energy, whatever, from the UN. There's setback. But it's like, if there hadn't been all these setbacks, it would have happened 10, 15 years ago. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe there is a version of that where it's sort of true. It's like the polar ice caps melting,
Right.
There won't be, it'll be gone. 5 years.
Right.
5 years.
Well, and I think, Tony just commented on there a little bit ago saying that he thought Trump's tweet might be more of a bluff rather than an actual threat, which I agree, Tony, 100%. That's what he's. I mean, I think he'd be prepared to follow through on it, but at the end of the day, like, that's not the position he wants to end up in.
It's evening over there right now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Is anything going on right now?
I had just pulled up just the latest kind of news there, and Trump is saying that
he wants unconditional surrender.
Well, so here's what, and again, this is another one that's just kind of weird.
Unconditional surrender,
right? It is one that's kind of weird. Is that if you look at this, right? Trump says we now have complete and total control of the skies, right?
Yeah.
Why would you be using that term?
The word we.
Yeah, that's an interesting term to use,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a feeling this one will, a week will be a long time for this one.
Oh, here you go. Here's the Tulsi thing. So, yeah, no surprise here. Brushes off U.S. intel reports to align himself with Israel, right? Yeah, I know what our director of national intelligence says, but she doesn't know what she's talking about. Yeah, right here. I don't care what she said.
So this was an interesting thing that Bill O'Reilly on his talk, was it last night, was saying. Someone had written in about, like, well, do they have it? Do they not? What the evidence is? He's like, it doesn't matter. He says, well, all that matters is that Trump believes that they are close to a nuclear.
Well, that's right. That's right.
And so it's like, well, it doesn't matter what the report is or what his advisors say. Like,
one thing we know about Trump is he's not going to let a pesky thing like the truth get in the way of a good policy argument. Yeah. Okay. Well, so we can move on from that one. There's a lot of we don't knows there, but
let's talk about the Maha and Pharma.
Yeah, go for it.
So this was one of the things that Kennedy had RFK Jr. had really pushed during the campaign when he was running for president, was that Big Pharma had basically engineered a world where everybody, as many people as possible, had chronic diseases. Is basically his argument. And so not only do you have treatments for those chronic diseases, but you also have treatments for the side effects of the treatments for the chronic diseases. And then that goes deeper and deeper. So basically you have treatments all the way down. And that the Big Pharma, what their goal is to get everybody as quickly as possible on the chronic disease treadmill, hamster wheel, as fast as possible, so that they would just become lifelong customers. And so one of the tools that they had for this, according to his theory here, was the amount of advertising that they do on media. And now my world is a little different from a lot of other people in that I have worked very hard to remove all advertising from my life. I don't see advertisements. I have the maximum possible ad blockers on all of my websites. I've used various means to make sure that even that I don't see any ads on YouTube. I don't see any ads on Twitter. I don't see any ads on Facebook. I don't see any ads ever. All of my streaming stuff is ad free, and I basically never watch regular TV unless it's like a sporting event, like a Super Bowl you watch. So I don't see that many ads. But the statistics are that 24% of all ad revenue is from the pharma industry.
Mm-hmm.
which is
Insanity.
unbelievable.
So
24%. And 24%, by the way, they get a tax write-off for. So not only are they spending 24, so much money on advertising. So you think, well, that does a couple things for them. I mean, one is that it constantly gets potential diseases, things to ask your doctor about. And don't
ask
worry,
your
we can
doctor
fix
about,
it.
yeah.
Ask your doctor about. And so that's constantly in front of people's faces. One, and then two, um, and the principle of you never bite the hand that feeds. If 24% of your revenue is from one industry, it's probably very unlikely that you will do in-depth exposés on them, hold their feet to the fire. Like you're, it's not that the coverage is bought in some kind of direct way. I would be very
Mm-hmm.
surprised if there were emails that went back and forth saying, "Hey, you need to kill this story for us." Like that's almost, I'm almost certain that that is not what's going on. But the effect is probably the same. Um, you just wouldn't have a series of reports detailing that kind of thing. So it enables the pharma companies to be able to get positive coverage whenever they need, which has certain political benefits and so on. So anyway, um, so that was RFK's position, was that step one is remove the advertising,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like a couple Democratic senators agree
Mm-hmm.
and have put in place. They proposed a bill that would uh, make it illegal, more or less, for big pharma to advertise prescription medication.
Yep.
That probably, if it were to pass, it would probably fail on First Amendment grounds. I'm guessing. Although there are classes of things considered harmful that you're
I,
not allowed to advertise.
yeah, I
So,
don't
like, you
think so.
can't advertise. Uh, you can't
I don't think
advertise
so.
cigarettes. So,
Yeah, yeah, you can't advertise cigarettes. You used to not be able to advertise hard liquor. They repealed that a while back, but I think
I haven't seen an ad on network TV for Glock or Smith and Wesson.
that's right. You don't advertise firearms. So there's certain, and that's a Second Amendment right. So I mean, I don't see how this would be a hard thing to. I mean, yeah, of course, it'll get
It would have to
challenged
be
on first.
worded the right way to make it.
Yeah, and I agree. It will get challenged on First Amendment grounds, but I don't think it'll. It's the law is being called the End Prescription Drug Ads Now Act. The EPDA.
Well, and there's
Yeah,
there's
Bernie Sanders behind it. So yeah, there you go.
well, this might be kind of fascinating because if RFK Jr. is able to do that from within HHS, to do some of it, to basically say, well, if you want to advertise, you need to list out all of the potential side effects. So not not the ones where it's like, well, it may cause blah blah blah. It's like, no, you got to list all of them. And so you might can you imagine having an ad that's a minute long where like they
Yeah,
just keep droning on about all the things
right,
that it
right.
could do.
Yeah, I think there's certain criteria you could make that say, hey, you must include these in your ads, and to make it prohibitive to create the ads in the first place. That's absolutely the better, the easier shortcut on this one.
Well, because I think that one can be done more or less with the stroke of a pen.
Mhm.
But banning them outright, I think, would require an act of Congress. So I think that's fascinating. I've always wondered about this. I mean, I know there is what I forget the term. I think it's called a polypharmacy. There is the polypharmacy problem. So it's like any medication you have, the more medications you have, the higher percentage that you will have side effects associated with those that will themselves require medication.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so if it's and each one that you have, you're on long term. Like I'm just thinking of all the medicines that I've seen. None of them seem to be like cures. They all seem to be symptomatic management.
Well, that's right.
You know,
And I think that's a problem I've had with Western medicine for a long time. Is I'm a huge fan of all the advances in Western medicine. I'm not some kind of you know witch doctor or whatever, but I mean that's great.
grind up a bone.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Full voodoo.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a very it's all symptom management, everything symptom management. there's very, very little that goes into actually fixing a problem because there's no profit in fixing the problem. And I think that's people have been
And it's
talking about
over.
that that's right. Then it's over. And we don't have any, it's like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street when McConaughey is telling DiCaprio, like, no, the real secret of the game is to keep their money moving you can't let them cash out. If it cashes out, then it's real. You got to move them from this trade to that trade to this trade because the potential, what's next? You got to keep it going. And every time you move them, we make money. It's like that, and it's kind of that peel back of what's happening in you nailed it. So you've got pharmaceutical ads that are out there that are encouraging people to wonder if they may have a certain condition that they, wouldn't even be a thing, but it's like, oh, wow, maybe I have that, and they run to the doctor, and then the doctor is now hearing all this. You got the drug reps that are coming in saying, hey, your patients are going to be coming in and asking, we're launching a campaign, just be prepared. Here's how you can speak about it. Here's the things we're prepared. So you can oh yeah, we can handle that for you.
Here's
all
a whole
designed
stack of samples that you can 7-week or 7-day samples for people. They don't even have to pay any money or get started.
Yeah,
see if it works.
This is on us, dude, it's like, and then if you notice how pharma spends their ad money, the vast majority of the ad money is spent on channels that have, if not inside the news segments themselves, certainly on channels that have news interests, because then they know that, okay, well then whatever questions or questionable things happen, it influences the coverage that they're getting, the questions that they're getting asked. So, well, we don't want to necessarily ask that question because, it's just, like you said, it's 30% of our ad. I mean, I saw something just recently on radio. I don't even know that many people listen to radio anymore, but if that goes into effect, no pharma ads, the radio just next year will lose $130 billion of ad revenue. And then if you look at everything that's advertised on health and wellness, everything that's advertised on health and wellness, hospitals, cancer research, all this different stuff, right? 90% of all health and wellness advertising is pharma. 90%. And so it's huge. I think it's a massive problem. I'm excited that he's tackling it. It takes a lot of guts because it's not going to make many friends on it.
And I think I
don't necessarily agree with everything he does, but I just think, and this is one also, I have to give some kudos to Democrats here in this particular case, because they are, in this case, like staying true to what they've said their principles have been for a long time, which is, Bernie Sanders, a Democrat position for a long time, has been pharma's not pharma bad, but like this is a outsized influence that they're playing and we need to curb it.
Yeah. Well, and that, I agree. Like credit where credit's due. It wasn't suddenly like, well, now that's Trump's position. We disagree. We have to make the world
pharma.
For pharma.
Protect the advances of Western medicine.
Protect
right of our nation.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see that. I wonder, one of the things that has made me kind of curious about this is we have kind of a multi-pronged attack on big pharma that's going on inside the Kennedy world. And within sort of MAGA Maha combo. And we talked about it a few weeks ago, the thing about Medicare being able to do the most favored nation pricing structure. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, look, if suddenly, the next version of a hair regrowth serum that prescription only and it costs $10,000, but Medicare has to reimburse it, and so it's like this giant gravy train. It's like, well, if that gravy train's cut off at the funding level, do you still need to spend billions and billions of dollars on advertising? That's like, well, okay, we're gonna see if we can get as many people as possible on this new, I don't know, psoriasis drug. We'll just say, well, that psoriasis drug you're gonna break even on. You might make a little profit, but it's not like it's now sending billions of dollars back to your shareholders. Is it still something that you want to spend that kind of advertising money on? Mm-hmm. And it may still be valuable just in terms of making sure the coverage is always positive towards your industry. But it's a kind of a question I have. Like, is this going to be starved out anyway? Once we get better drug prices,
better pricing model. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm a fan. I say go Bobby go. And you know, and good job, Democrats, for keeping your eye on the ball for once. That's nice.
Yep. Yep.
That's a
Absolutely.
solid change. Okay, so those were the three that we joined on. So why don't you tackle Blue Sky?
Oh yeah. So I don't know. Have you ever made an account and looked around?
So I did make an account. I did poke around. I thought it was absolutely pathetic, and so I stopped visiting it.
Just it wasn't your thing, huh?
Dude, I'm not into. No, I'm not into propaganda. Sorry.
Well, I got involved in it mainly because it was started inside Twitter back when Dorsey was CEO, and they
Right.
spun it off as like an incubator for a new kind of more open protocol where there could be multiple providers, kind of like the Fediverse is, if anyone's on Mastodon or whatever. Where you could have independent sites. You would own your data. You couldn't be banned from your own server, kind of thing. So really cool technology in there, how they managed how user IDs worked and a distributed model. I thought it was fascinating. It really blew up after Musk took over Twitter, renamed it X. And then and the reason why was because moderation changed on Twitter. And it's kind of funny now looking back on it, but back in 2020, 2021, there were just all sorts of stuff you could not say online. It just is impossible. Because if you said those things, you would get banned. You would get banned from everything. You would have your PayPal account shut down. Like people were debanked over stuff that they posted on social media. And so it was kind of like, certain ideas were not allowed to be said. And if you found those particular ideas particularly triggering, then I'm sure it was like a beautiful, wonderful time for you where only reasonable people were allowed to, talk online. And so when all those moderation things went away, and it put pressure on everybody else. So, I mean, Facebook had to respond because it was like, well, no one wants to have a conversation on Facebook. It's too censored. We're going to have our conversation over on X. And by the way, just a couple of weeks ago, YouTube relaxed some of their policy guidelines on what can be said and discussed on YouTube. So we're seeing kind of a swing back the other way, back towards like an open style discussion or open internet for social media. I'm kind of sad about that. I was hoping they would keep going in that direction so that you'd have more alternatives, more decentralized alternatives. But the people that run those companies actually are pretty smart. And so they're like, we can't throw away our user base. Like if the only thing left on Facebook is people sharing pictures of their cats and no one's doing anything on there, then like, well, no one will want to advertise with us. We don't have any cultural power anymore. So once X opened up the floodgates of discussion, then it seems like everybody else needs to do the same. So Blue Sky was a place where people left X because it suddenly allowed conservative voices. So everybody clusters in.
Because the newly allowed conservative voices were making people uncomfortable.
They were. Yeah. Well, and you'd have like people like J.K. Rowling say things like, trans women are just men in dresses. And it's, and it's just like, people are like clutching their pearls, their blue hair.
That's not a woman.
That's a man.
The king has no clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that is literally.
So the funny part about it is that Blue Sky, because something like 80-90% of the posters over there are all super hard left, right? So remember, these aren't people who don't like the conservative voices on X. If you don't like the conservative voices on X, don't follow them. You can ignore them. You can block them. Like, I don't want to hear that person's opinion. And you can just block whatever you want to block. It doesn't matter.
Well, I think the narrative that was being sold was more like, okay, Elon's taking over and he's going to favor conservative voices. This is going to be a conservative leaning or weighted platform. And I've heard reports about that nonstop. You can go all over the news and see that. Yep. And yet I'm on X quite a bit. I don't see that much political content on X because I don't follow a lot of political content on X. So I don't, but even when you send me stuff or somebody else will send me stuff, I'll go see it. It seems like it's a pretty diverse, And then also Elon has published the algorithm that they use to, I mean, it's open. It's basically somebody can copy it,
but
you know?
but you don't understand. Like, so for this group of people, the fact that someone is allowed to say at all, post at all, trans women are not women.
Yeah, but they wouldn't say that out loud. They would say that view is being favored, you know, because
no, they'll say it. I mean, I've seen it.
I'm not saying you're wrong, dude. People will say anything. I'm saying the narrative is that, hey, it's not that we find conservative voices uncomfortable. It's just that, you know, we don't want to be on a platform that is overwhelmingly toxic with right-wing hate, you know? Sure.
Yeah, like then it's guilt by association. Like, oh, you're over there.
You're still on X. Oh my God, you know. And that was, and dude, I was getting
all
that
the Nazis.
nonstop.
Oh my, you know.
Yeah, like, and I mean, I don't think the X rebrand is smart. I don't think the new logo is cool. I think a lot of the stuff on the fact that you can buy a verified account is just to be ridiculous. But on the flip side, like, I mean, there's nothing really wrong with it. I mean, dude, there's plenty of social media platforms. I don't like any of them, but everybody's on it. And I mean, like, okay, well, except for, dude, there was an article, Mark Cuban just had put something out about this.
Well, he was one of the ones that tried to get on Blue Sky.
Right here.
Yeah.
Because the lack of diversity of thought is actually pushing people back to X, you know? Yeah. And he said somewhere in here, because when you said this to me earlier, I just kind of looked so I could be conversational about it. But right here. Even if you agree with 95% of what a person is saying, if there's one point that you might call out as being more of a gray area, you're a fascist.
Yeah. No, it really is, right? Like these are the people that you know, someone. I mean, the kinds of things that you and I would think of as like, well, wait a minute, like, that was Obama's position when he ran for re-election in 2012, and it's like, oh no, that's beyond the pale now,
dude. It's funny. I mean, so I've done this with friends of mine. I'll be like, hey, check out a couple of these Obama quotes, you know, and you know, and oh, that's strong, that's good, you know. It's like, oh, that wasn't actually Obama, that was Trump. Oh you know. And then you take some, and then you take some Obama quotes and attribute them to Trump, and people will be like, "Oh, see, that's why I told you he was a fat." Especially the ones on immigration. Like, you can literally just and all you do is you do a Photoshop and replace and say, "Oh, look at what Trump said now." And it's like, just kidding, that was an Obama tweet. And people like they cannot. Dude, I disagree with. I don't know. It used to be a lot more, but I'm finding myself like less and less disagreeing. Like, I'm still 50 to 60% disagree with most of where Trump's at, but I still like evaluate it as it's not in a vacuum, dude. He's a politician. Yes, he's lying. They are all liars. But like, you know, yes, he's narrating. Yes, he's shading. Yes, he's doing all this stuff. Yes, that's misleading, right? Like, there's all kinds of stuff like that. Yes, okay, that was a scam. That was a look at the bird here, whatever. He's better at it than most people, which maybe, okay, does he do it more than X, Y, and Z? Yeah, okay. And his style is buffoonistic or whatever, and whatever. Yes. And dude, like, just if you evaluate things just case by case basis, but people are incapable. And I'll tell you another thing that's come up recently for me, at least in my opinion. Yeah, I think for you guys, you would call it maybe Trump derangement syndrome, right? It's like TDS. It's like, oh, you know, anything Trump comes up, your mind is, your head's up, you know. But I think Israel is now on that as well. Like, there is an Israel derangement syndrome that's out there too, where it's like, oh, you know, if you find out that Israel wants to do something, and it's like you either for or against, just completely reactionary, you know. Yeah. And the Trump derangement syndrome, I would say, I mean, right-wing people like to use it, sneering at left-wing people. But I think the Trump derangement syndrome is on both sides. I mean, there are people in the Republican Party who do not actually believe in, let's say, tariffs or, you know, immigration reform or any of these other things, but yet they're out there parroting these talking points. They also have Trump derangement syndrome. It's just, you know, either they're captured by their voters or they are, you know, swept up in the power grab or whatever. But it's like, bro, you were just saying the opposite thing, literally to you. Marco Rubio is a great example. I mean, he is very articulate on Trump's state of the case, or however you want to say it. You know, like, I mean, he is, I mean, you want to hear an articulate, well thought out Trump perspective, Rubio will deliver it for you. And yet this guy was saying the exact opposite thing, like literally, you know, 6-7 years ago.
I'll tell you, that was a genius pick for his position. I was a skeptic, but as far as like finding someone that is good for that administration's position, who would have thought little Marco, you know? It's very surprising.
Little Marco with the little hands.
Yeah. But you know, I'll tell you the blue sky thing, it's really funny to me, mainly because I think it's the kind of thing that happens with any group that favors ideological purity. That it's just like you're going to push people out, and instead of having like a core of things, I mean, we used to joke about this with like the way like evangelical churches would split up over stuff, and it's like you can just keep splitting forever until you get down to like 2 or 3 families that are like, well, we all agree with each other, and all those other people are wrong, you know, and that kind of thing happens.
Well, we went through a church split when we were in high school, and it's like it's one of the best arguments for Catholicism. I'm not a Catholic, but that is one of the best arguments for Catholicism, where it's like, you know,
you have someone at the top like, no.
Even Henry VIII, like at the end of his reign, right? Henry VIII is the one that argumentatively put this problem in the mainstream by creating by disassociating, he said, the Church of England from the Catholic Church. We've always been autonomous. We've always, but whatever. When he, at the end of his reign, was like, look, just because we don't listen to everything the Pope says doesn't mean that we're just going to subscribe to every fantastical, idea that you guys put forward. I think Blue Sky, from what I understand, right after the inauguration, they surged to like 30 million accounts, and it was like, oh, Twitter's on the way out now. Everybody's moving over there. But I think, and I just Googled this. So as of June 12th, so 5 days ago, they're at 36.5 million. So they went to 30 million, and then in the last 6 months, only got an extra 6.5 million accounts, and it appears a large percentage of these accounts are ghost accounts, like mine, right? People that create an account and never go there. Yeah,
right. As far as like active contributors, it's shrinking pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. I know we were going to talk about some of the domestic stuff. So we got the political assassinations in Minnesota, and we've got the National Guard rollout in California. And we also have, which I can't believe we didn't bring this up, but the No Kings protest on the same day as the military parade. And from what I hear, so depending on who you read, the No Kings protest was an amazing success, and Trump's military parade was an abject failure. Nobody showed up to it. Or thousands of people showed up to Trump's military parade as the No Kings protest fizzles and peters out across the country. It seems like, to me, if I kind of read all the sources that I've read and try to parse some of these numbers, it seems like both of them were kind of a dud. So what are your thoughts?
The problem with the No King stuff is I'm not sure what exactly they're protesting, other than Trump personally, which is fine. If that's what you want to protest, that's fine. But otherwise, I don't get it. Like I don't see what's going on with that. There was one here in Houston, and I don't know anyone that went to it. I didn't see any pictures of it. I mean, I'm sure it happened.
Did you hear that and this sounds like a joke. It's not a joke. That the No Kings protest had spread into Canada, with Canadians wanting to protest as well, except because they actually have a king, and that would actually be a traitorous statement. They had to change it in Canada to No Tyrants.
No tyrants.
Yeah, no tyrants.
Sic Semper Tyrannis, as John
Sic Semper Tyrannis. That's right.
Yeah. No, it's a weird protest. It reminded me of when Trump was inaugurated back in 2016, and you had like the giant protests in DC, and the woman sitting on the ground, as he's taking.
What they had all the pussy hats.
Yeah, she's sitting
vagina headgear. Yeah.
Yeah, she's sitting on the ground, and as Donald John Trump, whatever, and she's just screaming into the air, no, like that, and it's just that's kind of what this reminds me of. I just don't see that it's very effective. I don't see it doing anything. I think the money that went into that probably should have gone into some lawsuits. Like that seems to be right now the most effective way to gum up the works. Like
gum up the works, yeah.
Yeah, send the money to Perkins Coie or whatever. Um, although
Perkins Co.
there are some states where there's no way to like avoid protests. So, for example, in Florida, they say if your car is surrounded, feel free to run over the protesters.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that.
Right.
Yep,
And I
yep.
think Texas has a similar law. Like, so if you have people try to like block a highway or whatever, you can run them over. They're not supposed to be there.
Right.
Um, and so I
I saw a
did see,
T-shirt. No, all lives splatter.
yeah. Well, there was in
Just
Florida, they had a picture of they had a video of the No Kings protest, and they had this group with a big banner. They're walking out in the middle of the road, no kings, and they're holding this up. And then they see the light turn yellow and they all go back. Let the cars
I saw it.
go.
Yeah, yeah. Get
It's like
moved
you
out of the
cannot
way.
block the road. But in places where that's not the case, like California specifically,
Right.
where it's like, no, you can probably like smash up the cars if you want, drag people out of them if you want. Um,
But
then
there was no
I
incidents of
think
that I saw.
the,
Mostly peaceful protests.
mostly, yeah,
Mostly
few,
people. Yep.
just some people that they enjoying watching some cars burn. It's the problem. It's
That's
fine.
right. Yeah, free expression.
Um,
Yeah.
free expression. So anyway, I think for those places they probably were affected by it quite a bit more. But you see this kind of weird protest. Like protest is kind of its own thing. Like there's that group of people that went to Egypt and they were going to march across the desert to Gaza. Did you hear about this? The march to Gaza?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, big group of protesters went to Egypt. They landed in Cairo, and they're getting set up to go across Gaza. And they've got their signs, they got their gear and everything. And I think the trek across the desert is something like 30 miles, 20 or 30 miles, something like that. They're like, oh, we're ready to do it. We're going to bring relief. We're going to bring aid. We're here to bring awareness to what's going on in Gaza. And the Egyptian government was like, no, they just stopped them. And
You're not going.
you're not going. And they started arresting the protesters, and protesters like, how can you do this? It's like, well, we have orders. Like, you don't have to obey the orders. You
This is against the law, so
like you can disobey the orders, right? This is the right thing to do. And they're like, no, they're just like
mm,
handcuffing people. You've got people like Egyptian citizens like pushing people out, like, no, get out, all this other stuff. And the protesters are really kind of shocked by this. They're like, why are we being treated this way? Like, we're
we're
protesters.
here for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
we're
the gays for Gaza or whatever. You're like, I'm pretty sure they would
oh
execute you in Gaza. I
yeah.
think that queers for Palestine. Dude, I got a lot of gay friends, and I just don't think you want a Palestinian style government. Like, why
No.
would queers be for? I don't understand. I don't get
Yeah. Well, and
it.
this is one of those things that it's like the protest thing has its own joy. It's like, well, they let us do it over in America, and so you should let us do it here too. And
It's like
and we'll
it's like
stop the roads, and
it's like
it's
the it's like the
great.
video. It's like the videos of so a lot of these protests, especially like the National Guard protests in California, are against the immigration policy or whatever. And it's like, look, and a friend of mine actually sent me a clip of this scene in Mexico because they had a lot of illegal immigrants from Colombia in Mexico, and these
Okay.
Colombians they were arresting them, expelling them, or whatever, and there's this riot going on, but you see like these Mexicans holding up these signs saying, no illegals, get these people out of our country, and it's like, this is not some kind of weird problem. Every country in the world has immigration laws. People break them, and then there are consequences. Deportation is a nice, friendly one. You could also end up in jail. Like, how
Jail.
many people? Yeah, exactly. So I mean, come on, this is just, and then and then friends of mine are posting things like, here's some Bible verses about how God tells you to deal with the immigrant, or the alien if you read the King James, right? And it's like, dude, yes, the Bible says that. The Bible also says, here's how to take care of your slaves. Are we arguing for slavery? I mean, there's certain parts of the Bible that don't necessarily aren't applicable to 20th century America, 21st century America. Also, put the word legal immigrant in front of that and see how many people disagree with you. Like, I mean, nobody has a problem with that. People in general don't want, and it boggles my mind. Like, how did this become a Democrat? Like, again, I've been voting Democrat for 20 some years, and one of the things is to protect the American worker. And what's the biggest way to undermine the American worker is let in a bunch of people who are not able to, defend a minimum wage and equal hiring practices, all OSHA and all the other things. The regulations that apply to American citizens don't apply to illegals because they're not on the books, And then the argument that, oh, if you kick these people out of your country, who's going to mow your lawn? Who's going to pick your tomatoes? Who's going to blah, blah? I'm like, dude,
who's going to nanny your children?
Who is racist now? Right? Like, what kind of person says that? Like, oh, that's that. Okay, that's the only thing these illegals are good for. Number one, or number two, like, yeah. So you're arguing for exploiting people for low. That's your. I don't understand that. I just
actually, Eric, I think this makes perfect sense. And I think if you look at places, and I think one of the reasons where you see these protests happening in California is California is overregulated. Even Newsom admitted to more or less that when they were talking about the efforts to rebuild after some of the fires in LA. Right. It's an overregulated state. So when you have an overregulated state, there's this sort of general knowledge that the laws don't really work, and that if you actually have to follow all of them, your business, you'll go out of business. You won't be able to do whatever. And so you basically have to bake into everyone's expectations that many laws will be broken in order to keep things going. And that if they're broken in a way that benefits you politically, then, you don't have to worry about it. So it's like, hey, if minimum wage laws are so high because everyone's out there going like, oh, we need a sustainable minimum wage and you have to have a livable wage. It's like, well, okay, turns out that that won't work. All the fast food restaurants shut down, or your Big Mac is now $15 or something like that. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. And so we're not going to get rid of McDonald's, and we're not going to rewind this law, because if we rewind the law, then we're saying that, no, actually livable wage is not a thing. You have to still say livable wage is a thing and trumpet that we won the fight for the livable wage. And so now we can have indentured servants, more or less, do the work for us, and we'll all look the other way. But that's just what we have to do in order to keep telling ourselves that we succeeded, we made it. It worked, and I think it's like, it's kind of just the unfortunate. It's like during Prohibition, right? Everyone knows that the laws against alcohol aren't working, and so it's like, well, yes, and so there's going to be bootlegging, there's going to be rum runners, there's going to be all this blockade stuff, people smuggling, and you just got to sort of allow that to happen. And as long as you get a cut, if you're the local politician or the local constabulary, then, maybe it's okay. And then, when you end Prohibition, it kind of cuts off the gravy train. Everyone's having fun.
Have you ever watched that show, Boardwalk Empire?
No.
You have to. So the very first episode is directed by Scorsese. So just watch at least that. That's
okay.
But like, you'll get sucked right in, man. But it's
all right. I'm making a note to watch it.
Very first episode, they have a, it's New Year's Eve of the day Prohibition goes into effect, right? And so it's they're all having a big party, and then as the clock counts down, everybody lifts up their glasses and they're like, Prohibition starts, yeah, we're all gonna get rich, it's great. Okay, I know you got a hard stop coming up here. You had some Father's Day thoughts you wanted to share. Why don't you close us out with that?
Okay, so this is kind of a weird one for you. So one of the things that have always bothered me about Father's Day is the Father's Day sermons. So if you ever listen to a Mother's Day sermon, it's like, the beauty of motherhood. Mothers gave us everything. They sacrificed for us. We have to honor them, all that. And Father's Day sermons are usually all true. Yes. Women are magical creatures. Anyway, the two versions of the Father's Day sermon, you either get the one version, which is
time for men to step up. Time for men to step up.
Dads, you can do better. You can do better. Like, be the kind of father that you should be. and also go marry the single moms. They need husbands, So like there's that version of the Father's Day sermon. And the other version of the Father's Day sermon is the one where it's like overcoming the deep emotional and spiritual scars left by your father. It's like, because the earthly father abandoned you or beat you or whatever, or never said he was proud of you, it's okay. You have a heavenly father.
You have a heavenly father, yeah.
And the heavenly father, fix all. And I'm just sitting here every time when this happens, and I think to myself, well, okay, I don't have any crazy, weird emotional scars from my dad. Like, was he perfect? No. Did he have to be? No. Would I expect him to? Did he? How good of a job do I think he did? A really good job. Even the mistakes were interesting mistakes. And it's like, what kind of dad am I? I feel like I did an okay job.
Like I'm all right. Yeah.
Will my kids probably have to have a little bit of therapy to overcome whatever my shortcomings were? Probably, but whatever, right? And so sitting here going like, none of these sermons apply to, like, what's the deal?
We'll have to ask your kids to get a realistic answer.
We will. Although, well, that's for
another time.
But this year, I was thinking to myself about just how rare that is. Like, how many people I know that have extremely fraught relationships with their dads, or they were never good enough, or they were pushed, or
you talking about men or women that
both. Like, they had like dads who were basically never there. They were present, but like just disengaged from the family, or saw that as like someone else's job to take care of the kids. And so like a lot of stuff of them, like, how many people that I've heard say, well, oh yeah, my dad, I miss him. I know he loved me. He
right.
In his own way.
Say it. I mean, in his way. Yeah.
He knew. And it's like, I hear that so much that I think, maybe I shouldn't be upset at these sort of more difficult, especially the second version of the Father's Day sermon, where it's like, God can heal the wounds that we cause each other. And so maybe for so many people, Father's Day is like a tough day, and not just not just a celebration. So anyway, it was an interesting moment. Like, maybe like, I need to be less prickly about this one, perhaps.
Right. Well, it's hard. I think any sermon that you sit in, it's if you feel like that sermon is being directed at you, it gets really tense. I like to think when I go to church that none of this applies to me. It's much more comfortable way to go to church. No, I'm just kidding.
For those people.
Yeah, it's for those. Yeah, I'm glad these people are all here. Somebody in here needed to hear this. Yeah, no, I think we were really. I mean, that's actually a great way to end the podcast, man. I think we were both really fortunate, and I think our dad. Yeah, I know your relationship with him was different than mine. I mean, I had probably, out of the three of us, I had probably the worst relationship with him.
The most adversarial, we'll say.
There you go. The most adversarial. That's the perfect way to say it. And so we had our ups and downs and even reconciliation conversations and stuff over the years. But as I listen to stories of other people, it's like, man, even my story, it's like, in my context, is the toughest of the three stories. Is still like a great story, man. We were very fortunate. I had a loving dad who worked hard and provided for us and gave us a great example to live up to. So I just very grateful, man. And I'd say it's like, and when I think about like the kind of dad I want to be, I don't want to be exactly like he is. I have my own ideas, but it's like if I could leave that same kind of legacy where my kids felt the way about me, the way I feel about him, I would consider that a huge success. So,
well, and I'll tell you one other thing too that that really struck me as well is that, like, a lot of times we think about our relationship with our dads, sort of in general, as our relationship with them in our childhood. Yeah. But my relationship with my dad in my childhood was, less than half the time that I've known him.
Yep. Right.
And so it's like, even if I did have, say, some particularly testy moments in my later teens, which you weren't around to witness, you'd escaped.
You'll have to tell me those stories later.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I think, okay, well, that was a couple years there. And it's like, right there at the end. It's like, at the end of what? Like, that was still towards the beginning of my relationship with them.
I think what you're thinking of, though, is like, when you're a kid, you're experiencing your parents, like, we'll just
24/7.
Right. All day, every day. Right. And even when they're, our dad worked from home for a large part. I mean, I guess half the time that I was a kid, more of the time when you were a kid, but like, he was accessible. He was like right there. And he was constantly, he was just a presence, right? Like, hey, get up. Hey, brush your teeth. Hey, like, you're here, turn off that light. I said, turn off the light. I actually sent a meme the other day. It was like this dude sitting at a table with stacks of money. And it's like, all the money dad saved now that we've all moved out, and he could keep the lights off.
Keep the lights off. Yeah.
It was like, turn off that light. Hey, are you still running the shower? So it's like, make sure you're home by 10. And so you hear all this, and it's like, that is the majority of your experience. Because now when I see him, it's like for a few hours and, here and there. And you don't, even when we're staying in his house, it's not like a my house, my rules type of thing. It's just more of so you don't have, so I think that's when you think of the end, or why we think of that, it's because it was during that formative time, but also because it's the largest majority. Somebody had given me this stat the other day, and it said, you get 20 years with your kids. So you get 18 years of them living with you. And then from the time that they are, move out, go to college, whatever, you get a cumulative 2 more years when you add up all the hours, which I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's interesting. So
yeah,
food for thought.
I don't buy that one really. Like, because think about, you got the time that you're in school, you got the time that you're doing homework stuff, you're doing sports, you're doing whatever. It's not like your parents are there,
Don't get overly literal, man. It's
you sleep,
It's a tool to keep you present, man. Don't dissect it. Just go with it.
No. Like, well, so this is different. Okay. So this is a little difference in our perspective then.
Yeah.
Your kids are real little. It's advantageous for you to think about, like, I really need to, like, this is the most important time.
Right.
My kids are grown. And so now it's advantageous for me to think about, well, this is the most important time. Hey, whichever time you're in, that's the most important time to be.
Well, that's right. Dad. Well, because as Buddha says, the present is all you have.
It's all you have.
That's it. All right, brother. Well, hey, enjoy date night. This was fun. See you guys again in a week or two, whenever we decide. Are we going to do it one more time before we go?
Oh yeah. Okay. We'll do an update, and then we'll take a 2-week hiatus, and then we'll be back.
All right.